Hi, I'm Emily Stelling. I'm from Luther Seminary. I'm a first-year student studying to get my Master's of Divinity to be a pastor. I believe that God calls out to people, so it's not that I chose God or anything, it's that God chose me. But I really do think it was my stepfather, Dave, who brought me into the Lutheran Church and was like, hey, here's a community for you. And when I came into the Lutheran Church, I felt the community, but I felt grace, and that is what captured me. And so I thank David for being the most significant person in my life who led me to that. Yeah. The undeserved, unmerited, unconditional love of God. Grace is, it's one of those things you can't really describe. It's everywhere. Like, I see grace when I feel the sunshine on my face. My call really has been a progression of my life story. I really feel that way. I always say that my official call story, kind of like Luther's lightning strike story, is really came with the waters of my baptism. I was baptized when I was 12. So my mom met David when I was 10. They married when I was 11. And we got really into the church. And within 1 year, I had gotten baptized. I received my first communion, my Bible, and I started confirmation all within a year. So I felt like a pop star at my church, needless to say. And I really felt it was then, like at my baptism, where it was just like, I feel called, like it was just like, this is outside of myself. This is a calling that I just need to like go forth and just do. It was a pretty profound thing to feel as a 12-year-old, and I even knew it then. So for instance, when I was a junior in high school, I went to this Badger Girl State. I don't know if you guys have heard of Badger Girl State. Anyway, there's this thing. It was like a women empowering thing, and so there was a college fair, and I went to it, and they had all these college booths, right? And I knew then that I wanted to go and study theology because I knew eventually I wanted to go to Luther Seminary, right? Luther Seminary was always the end goal. Well, one of the goals. And so I go to this booth, Wisconsin Lutheran College, and I'm like, yeah, hey, and they're buttering me up, giving me free pencils and whatever they give you at the booths, and I was like, yeah, I want to study theology, and they're like, oh, cool, like, what do you want to do? Like, be a teacher or something? And I said, no, I feel called to be a pastor, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, it's just, we don't believe that women can be pastors. Like, and mind you, this was my first ever, I had no idea that Lutherans somewhere in the world didn't accept women at this time, right? I was a baby. And so it was just like, wait, what? Like, I can't come to you don't want me to come to your school anymore. No, they told me don't come here. Honestly, my pastor drove me to Luther Seminary to go tour it when I was 12. Yeah. And he's just like, oh, look, that's where you can live when you go here. And I was just like, oh my gosh, there's a whole place you can go. It's like Hogwarts, a whole place you can go and study theology, amazing. Ultimately, I do feel hope, though, for women being not only leaders, but strong leaders. The thing that might be the changing point in the future of the church. I really do, in terms of how the world sees the church, in terms of how we see the church, how we see church, and how we see it interact with the world. I'm of firm belief that the oppressed in this world, which, let's face it, for a long time has been women, I firmly believe that the oppressed of the world are those that rid the world of its illnesses. Mm-hmm. Paul says in one of his letters, hey, I'm giving this to my sister Phoebe, I'm giving this to deaconesses. He explicitly calls out in Scripture women leaders who he entrusts his gospel with. to give to other people so that they could hear the message, right? If that's not a pastor, I don't know what is. So in other words, women in religious roles, women in Christian religious roles, Christian roles, have been around since the beginning of the church, easily. In fact, the first proclaimers of the message were women when they found the tomb empty. The same God who called Martin Luther is calling me, and that has to mean something. So I suppose my legacy is just living into that call.